Welcome back. You're now watching the lifestyle segment of the weekend show, brought to you by Holo Crunch.
Crunchy, yummy goodness.
Yum. All right, we'll be talking about the high inflation rate of food in Nigeria. Nigerian food inflation has risen by 110.5% in 5 years between 2015 and September 2020. This means that the price of food items has not only increased but more than doubled in the last 5 years of President Muhammadu Buhari's administration. Food items that have witnessed significant increases are foreign rice, which sold for an average of 14,500 as of May 2019 and is now being sold at an average of 30,000 naira. A 50 kg bag of Ijebu gari that sold for 7,200 now sells for 14,500. A piece of frozen fish, which cost 400 naira, now sells for 600 naira. Joining us on today's program to discuss this, we have
Amina Abdul Salam. She's an agribusiness development strategist and inclusion advocate. Welcome to the weekend show.
Thank you. My pleasure to be here.
It's also my pleasure to introduce Onome Tive-Denedo. She's the Director of Public Affairs at Ethical Care Foundation and an M&E professional. Welcome to the weekend show.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome.
Welcome, ladies. I'll start with you, Amina. What would you attribute to the highly inflated prices of food items across the nation?
First of all, I would tie it to a lot of macroeconomic factors. As generations evolve, the quality of life would need to measure with what salary you earn on a monthly basis. But when it's not commensurate, then you can't afford it, you can afford it. I would want to, first of all, blame it on insecurity and porous borders. I know that, and then we have issues of climate change impacts, and then agribusiness risk factors. When people are unable to get a safe haven in terms of ensuring their farmlands, then it's into your investment and you're not able to make anything really out of your farming process. And then with the northeast issues of Boko Haram, a lot of smallholder farmers are beginning to move. Urban migration is taking effect in these regions. So where you should have more food production and also pricing as well, the markets, when prices are not stable and we do not have commodities boards where the government mediates on behalf of the populace, that is having these aggregate points to offtake prices, food items, and then making it available to the agro processors. You have too much speculations in all of this. So these are some of the little factors that just make everything difficult for you to control the pricing, because you have Boko Haram on one side, you have climate change impact, flooding, people that go into agribusiness to make profits are losing their investment, and then the tightening of the ag insurance is really not there, So these are the factors
I think you've clearly laid the foundation for the conversation we're about to have. But I also want to let our viewers know we're going to open up the phone lines. The number will be on your screen shortly. So we want to hear from you. So whether you're in the Northeast or the Northwest or the North Central, South, Southeast, Southwest, we want to hear from you about how this is impacting your daily lives and to prefer solutions also on what the government and we the people can do to change this. Andy.
Onome, we've made excuses about this rise in prices. So the land borders have been closed for months. The government has spoken about diversifying the economy. And so if we want to diversify the economy, we should be able to export food to neighboring African countries. And some of them had complained when our borders were closed. However, COVID-19 was another reason. But between September and October, where a lot of the restrictions have been lifted, inflation still rose from about 13.22% to 13.70%. So there's been about another 0.4%. And so beyond the excuses, which we make. Food prices are still going on month. What do you think is the reason for this?
In the first place, I want to go back to what you said. There's increase in food prices, and the borders are shut down. But Ijebu Gari is not something we get from the borders. It's something that is gotten locally in the first place. And if there's an increase, it is because there's shortage of food production in the first place. Insurgents will continue. It's not something that is going to go away. There's no miracle to it. A few years before Boko Haram, we had the boys from the Niger Delta. So at every point, there's insurgents. It is left for us now to decide to work on the fact that agriculture, as we all know it, is dying. Nobody wants to tend to agriculture. Nobody wants to. Everybody believes that for you to be a part of this sector, you have to remain in the village, even in the urban sector. Recently, I have, because of this, I've done a bit of research, and I find out that there are even crops that actually can be cultivated without land. So it's not a question of insurgents, it's not a question of availability of land, it is a question of the mindset of the people. We are always waiting for things to be handed down to us. Government, yes, they have their parts to play, but if you find out that this is happening, I believe that each and every one of us plants one seedling, then we'll be able to combat that. If the crops are not being available from the Niger Delta, then let's concentrate on the South-South.
But just to interrupt you, a lot of Nigerians have actually gone into farming, even young Nigerians who I know personally.
What are they farming?
And so, but we'll come
everybody
to
is farming to export.
Beyond what they are farming, Onome, we have had and we still have cases of herders and their cattle coming into farms and destroying food and property and destroying the crops. And so regardless of the fact that people may want to contribute individually and say, let's join the food production train, you plan and before harvest season, cows come and eat all your crops.
One of the ideas that we preferred in Article Care Foundation was we talked about having a farming village. If you had a farming village where people converge and you are told, do this. This is your expertise. Amina's expertise is finding out this. Your expertise is that, my expertise is that. And then we provide security. It goes back to what I'm saying. Everybody becomes involved. It is the mindset of the person. Now, if I've seen a situation where there are henchmen in somebody's farm, and I was telling somebody this, and he said to me, it's not my farm, so why would I want to intervene? I almost lost my life for intervening for a farmland. I didn't know who it belonged to. So part of the things that what I'm trying to say is, what we have been able to do at the foundation is to combat this, and we have a lot of communities. In fact, we're present in the 36 states where we have been able to develop a farming community where we give the seedling, we provide the security, we provide the market, and we're able to regulate the prices.
Okay, let's open up the phone lines. I saw the number, the director had put the number on the screen earlier. I don't know if we can have that number again. We want to hear from you, your thoughts and contribution to the conversation that we are having. 110% increase, that is quite a lot, seeing that the salaries are not commensurate to the amount of food prices that we have today. So Nigerians are suffering, hence the whole Sorosoke movement, end bad governance, the agitation from the ordinary Nigerian. Again, the number is 080-537-89021, 080-537-89021. Call in and share your thoughts with us. Amina, I'll bring you in again. So what do we need to do? So we've talked about government policies, we've talked about our porous borders, we've talked about, you know, the general effect of all this on everyday Nigerians, but what are some solutions that we could prefer going forward?
Number one priority I would recommend to the government is invest in security. Invest. Because this takes a lot of infrastructural development, placements, you know, and then the road infrastructure, very important, because you mentioned urban farming. Yes, urban farming is good, it helps, you know, but then when you have you acquire a farmland in maybe Kuje Area Council, and in 4 years' time, it's still underdeveloped. You can't even ply the roads. What are we talking about? It means we're really slow-paced, and we're not conforming to the reality of our cohorts in other climes. Secondly, the train networks would be a very simple approach to connect food from the north to the south. I'm sure you're aware of the recent trends on onions. You know, onion has become gold overnight. And then I did some research and found that from 9,000 as at early this year, we are talking about 90,000 naira for onions. Yes, you know.
From 9,000 to 19.
Yeah, I saw some of your figures that highlights the current prices. It's even higher than that. You mentioned the average for gari per 50 kg as, I can't remember how much you mentioned, but it is actually 17,000 if we're to go by the realities on ground.
Wow.
Yes.
And these are the figures as of October
In
31st.
fact,
So today, November 7th, in
Yes.
just 1
In
week,
fact,
it has...
in fact,
Wow.
rice has even risen up to 36,000 in the outskirts.
Yesterday I bought 38.
Yes, you see, she's not far
So
from
transportation
what I'm saying.
is,
Yeah.
besides security, which I hear
Logistics,
you,
supply
well,
chain.
the logistics and the supply chain. So a lot of people want to go into agriculture, Australia, and not a lot of people are looking at the logistics part of it. So it's a whole chain.
It's a
Getting
whole
it from
chain.
suppliers, because I'm from Benue State, and I know there's a lot of food waste because most of them have this produce, but to get it out of there to urban cities and the rest of the country, it's still a
tedious.
problem from the farms to the state's capital and then externally. Since your organization has been working with communities in the 36 states, how can that gap be bridged, the logistics gap?
Okay, if we're going to use Ethical Care Foundation as an example, what we do, apart from the fact that we give this farmland, we also try and bridge the gap of middlemen. That's number one. And then number two, we also provide the logistics like she talks about. And we bring it, we make sure it doesn't go through anybody. It gets to the hands of those people that need it. We're talking about food. We're talking about, there are lots of things that is going to be tied to this continuous increase. There's going to be health hazards in this country if care is not taken. Because if you are sick, you look at the fact that I am sick, I need food. So which one is for? Something must kill man now. So we decide that we're going to eat food. You're neglecting your health, you're neglecting we're going to start burying our old people. If I'm not able to take care of myself, my 4 children and my grandchild, then how do I remember my mother? So what we do in Ethical Care Foundation is we collect these foodstuffs and then we augment the prices and we take to the market. We have people like Aliyu Abbas who goes to the market and sells yam. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? We even have, sometimes we have people in government, we bring them, we stand there and we sell it to you. We tell you how much you can get. We know when you're coming to buy and resell. So we break that chain. If the government is going to go into such a thing, there are Nigerians who are still able and who are honest enough to do this and stand in the gap and make sure it gets to the masses.
Sorry, we have a caller. Your name and where you're calling from, please. Good morning.
Can you please turn down the volume of your TV set, please?
Good morning.
Yes, please turn down the volume of your TV set, please.
Good morning. Hello?
Yes, good morning. Can you turn down the volume of your TV set
And we understand there's a delay in transmission. So just turn down the volume of your TV set when you can hear us and introduce yourself and give us your contribution to the conversation.
Okay, so you spoke about middlemen. Now, this is me speaking off the top of my head.
Okay.
Aren't they a contributing factor to the inflation because they want to also make a profit. And so once they get it at these pretty low prices from the rural communities, and you take that and get it to the middlemen to get to the rest of Nigeria, they have a role in adding those extra percentages that increase the prices by the time the onions get to us.
Yes.
So that doesn't fix the problem.
She's talking about, which is the truth, as of this morning, 19,000 for a basket of onions that used to be 9,000 naira. But if you go to places like Benue, or you go to places like Kano, you would see somebody will come and give you onions in a basket and ask you to pay 2,000 naira. So it's actually, it's not just the government and infrastructures that are not there. I'm not downplaying that these things are real and it is happening. I'm also saying that we Nigerians need to re-educate ourselves and change our mindset. The middlemen want to make 500% profit. You go and buy onions from where it is for 2,000-3,000. Okay, yes, there's a hike in fuel prices, but it is not just one basket of onions that you're buying. Yeah, but then if there's a hike in fuel prices, if you go to Kano before now, Kano used to be 1,500, 2,000. Now it is 2,000 naira. So what's the price margin that you come back and sell that same onions that you bought for less than 4,000 and you're selling it for 19,000, which is what it gets to us. That when you sell to this person, that's so many people that it gets to pass through before you and I can buy it at the market.
It seems to me that these are just businessmen and businesswomen looking to maximize the profits of, or the return on their investment. So if the government, is able to step in and put in the proper infrastructure and also ensure that they can sort of subsidize some of these costs, then the ordinary Nigerian on the street will not have to, look at onions as gold, as you said earlier. But one second, let me bring in Amina here as well. So you were talking before about the solutions. So people who are watching now are saying, well, now just they speak big English for studio, So for me that earns 30,000 naira a month as my salary, how do I go about just living? How do I go about affording the basic essentials, the necessities to survive? And you have children that you have to take care of. You have school fees that you have to pay. You have, all these other different living costs. So what do they do? What do they need to do right now?
Now, while I applaud your advocacy for people to change their mindsets, business owners to change their mindsets, the reality is an average Nigerian would seize into an opportunity of scarcity. Once there's scarcity anywhere, and these are market forces, you can't control pricing. Only the government has the capacity to control pricing on a large scale. Now, why am I saying this?
Are you advocating for regulation?
Yes, this is what I'm advocating for.
In every other sector, Nigerians
and how do you regulate? How do you regulate? She spoke of a model, an offtake model, which is what I initially mentioned, aggregate points. Where you have aggregate points, where you have volume, you can control pricing and you can stabilize cost of raw materials for a prolonged period of time. And that gives the people some level of soft landing. I
would like to pick this conversation back up after we take this caller, because in other sectors, everyone is advocating for deregulation of, of products. So I wonder how this would work, in terms of food pricing. But I hear we have a caller. Your name and where you're calling from, please. Okay, I think we've lost you again. All right.
Yes. Yes. So to buttress on this point, if you look at Afex, I'm sure you're aware of Afex, a commodities mediator. They offtake from smallholder farmers, and then when they have good pricing negotiations, they now sell for the smallholders. Unfortunately, what we have as our mainstay in terms of primary food production is scattered harvests. We have tiny clusters of smallholder farming, 1 to 5 hectares. So you can't do much. And then for you to now aggregate, that is logistics we're talking about. It now raises the costs. These are the tiny factors that makes food expensive. When you now have to leave those smallholder farming communities to the markets, to the farm gates, that is what adds to the cost of these food items. So where the government steps in is where you deal with this on a systematic approach. You deal with different regions on the basis of comparative advantage. If onions is the focal commodity for a certain region, you focus maybe an aggregate point there, and then you offtake from the smallholders and create a system whereby 5% is being generated from what you have. That way, even if it's an annual plan, you have a forecast of maybe 3 years. The price is stable and there's a soft landing.
That's very smart.
Yes.
We have another caller. Let's give this one more try. Your name and where you're calling from, please. All right. It seems there's something wrong with our telephone lines today. I apologize. We won't be able to take any more calls. Yes.
And to add to that, this also speaks into generating effects, because I like to keep agriculture in perspective. Either you're doing it as a means to attain food security, which the government is saddled with, or it's as a means of FDI, foreign direct investment, or FX generation. You're creating more opportunities for exports, you know, playing with the international markets. And then we have commodities, interestingly, that we really need to leverage on. We have sesame seeds, we have cashews, we have so many commodities that we can really focus on. But in this case, we're talking about food security, and food is a right. So private individuals cannot essentially control pricing. It's not possible. In every other country, commodities boards work. You just need to model it in a way that the system or the model you adopt generates the revenue itself, but that price has to be stable on a prolonged period of time.
Amina, but and I'm not holding brief for the government. I understand that they had some agribusiness loans which was being disbursed by NISAL.
Yes.
And that was between 2 to 10 million naira.
Still ongoing.
It's still ongoing. Yeah. And I know some people who have benefited from it. The solutions which you have both preferred is pretty much what that is meant to do.
Exactly.
So why isn't that being done? So is there an implementation problem, or is it the Nigerians who are taking the loans and not implementing it? Because if it's about regulation, which we're tired of in this country, we do have a bit of regulation. We do have a bit of those solutions on paper. And like we have admitted, some people have started receiving those loans. So that's meant to bridge the gap. They're meant to bring the off-takers to take the goods off the farmers, even after giving them the loan. So why is there still this conversation?
Unfortunately, agriculture is the sector that you can't compare with oil and gas or other rural sectors. Agribusiness is something that requires time. It needs expertise.
Time that we don't have right now.
Exactly, time that we unfortunately do not have right now. Thank you. So for a business an SME to gain traction, it will take maybe 2 years, you know, before you are able to gain traction, market entry. So why I would continue to buttress on the large scale is because of the population. You know, it's not possible for you not to be able to control volume and say you want to stabilize pricing. It will not work. It won't work. And then I will still insist, because an incident happened when we had a market glut incident about 3 years ago. You know, we were controlling the cashew. We were trying to get onboarded with the cashew development. And then we found out that the Indians are controlling the entire cashew markets. So you have the raw material, but you don't have control over it because you're not doing value addition locally. You're not doing value addition.
Onome,
So
let me give you, I'm so
value
sorry.
addition is very important on the medium to large scale. And when you don't do value addition on that level, on that scale, you can't still employ enough people, because SMEs cannot even afford to hire a lot of people.
Most definitely. I want to keep us on track here with the high inflation rate of food. Onome, I want to give you the final word. Okay. Amina has clearly preferred some really implementable solutions I believe the government must adopt immediately. So what are your final words? How do we either curtail these prices, or what solutions, what are you, in your perspective, what solutions can we prefer to this issue?
Like you rightly said, the rise in food prices is gotten to an epidemic case in Nigeria. It's a pandemic, and it is something we don't have time. while the government is looking at the regulation, what is the thing that we as individuals can do? As Nigerians collectively, you rightly said NISAL is doing that. A lot of people are getting this money. I grew up at a time where Nigerians had empathy. I grew up at a time where we were our brother's keeper. It is not time for you to see the food market as business. It is time for us to see the food market as it's part of, it's a right for me to have access to food, especially the fact that I have the money. It does. I'm not saying don't do your business, but then it doesn't. It's while we're waiting for Nigeria. Atiku Abubakar is not a Nigerian. I mean, he's not in government. I'm not in government, and we are doing all these things. If we had more Nigerians, we have the strength of numbers. We are the highest concentration of black people, and if we're the highest concentration of black people, let's come out en masse. We've been doing that for other things. It is time for us to march for the right of food to be dropped. The food, it is there. It is there. We are still cultivating. If you go to some part of the north, you see wastage on the road. If you go to the south, the same thing. So let's stop this wastage. Let's bridge this gap, and let's be our brothers' keepers. Let's have more people do what we do. If there are more of us doing this, then food will go around. There's a limit to what we can do. Yes, we've got the numbers too, but then if we had more than 1, 2, 3 people doing what we're doing, we will not be talking about this. If we flood the market with these foodstuffs that people are intentionally hoarding to create this crisis, and we go and get it from the farmers and we flood the market, you will be forced to bring out the one you are hoarding. It is in the hoarding that this is coming out from. So while we're waiting for the government to either look into it, pass the bill, regulate, talk to professionals, let's be Nigerians, let's be Africans, and march on to make sure that everybody has a right and access to food. Bearing in mind that even the 30,000 naira, it is not everybody that earns 30,000 naira. I've seen nurses, even in this Abuja, that earn 15,000 naira a month. How do you expect those people to survive? So let's be our brother's keeper. Let's go out and get this. If you have few monies that you know, it's business. Like she rightly said, 5% markup is still a lot of money. It's still a lot of money. So instead of putting these monies in the bank, like most Nigerians are doing, or taking it outside the country, reinvest it in the society, get people to go to the rural areas, to the villages, and bring this thing to the market, and we flood. That's the only way. Flood the market.
Flood the market. That's a fine place to leave it, and also an inspirational place to leave it this morning, to remember that we're first of all Nigerians before we are businessmen, businesswomen, and the like. So thank you so much for that, Onome and Amina.
Thank you.
We want to apologize to our viewers for the breach in communication. Our phone lines don't seem to be working today. We'll try and rectify that for our conversation in the upcoming segment of the Weekend Show. The conversation does not end here. Do follow us on social media at Weekend Show NG on Instagram and Twitter to share your thoughts with us. We'll take a short break. When we return, more on